everyone, and welcome to the new version of the 4TOX1 top things to know before you join. Okay, laboratory technicians, what do? We do medical lab samples. That's blood, that's urine, that's feces, that's semen, any body fluids. We also do like skin scrapings, things like that, fungal cultures, workups, all sorts of stuff like that. We support the doctors by running tests to diagnose people with diseases. That's pretty much the gist of the job. Okay. We also run the Air Force blood banks, which provide blood units to people who are in surgery or are experiencing trauma. That's the job of lab techs, is to run the blood banks, which is a very important part of the readiness mission. So, if you want to be a lab tech and you don't want to be on the flight line and you don't want to be security forces, this is the video for you. Number one thing to know, and you'll know this from your recruiter, hopefully they tell you, but I just had an interview with the career functional manager, Chief Master Sergeant Alonso Blackman, and he gave me the rundown of how the new system works. I am currently a staff sergeant. I've been in for 6 years as a lab technician, and I think I can speak on what my experience is as far as this career field, that I'm going to share that with you guys. Chief Blackman was telling me this. Your new program, how it works is you go to basic training. First, you gotta get accepted at MEPS, right? You go through the MEPS process just like every other trainee. Pass BMT, don't fail. Then you take a bus to Fort Sam Houston, Texas, and you will be attending school at METC campus for 9 months, okay? So that's 2 months in basic training, then 9 months in phase 1 of tech school. When you're in phase 1 of tech school, you won't be allowed to take leave. I think with a waiver or something, you don't even need a waiver. Your family can be with you. You just have to apply for housing if you want to try to like bring your family to on-base housing. That you can work out with your supervisor when you get to your phase 1. But for now, phase 1 is typically just your pipelines, schoolhouse training. You'll be sitting in a classroom, you'll be falling asleep, going over the main lab stuff that you're going to be using to take your MLT test. Now, after 9 months, you will go to one of 11 different bases, okay? These are the 11 bases, which you will now be spending 6 months at. So it goes 2 months basic training, 9 months phase 1, 6 months phase 2, which is basically your clinicals, as well as more time in the classroom to go over the more details of what you're doing in the lab. And you'll be doing it side by side with your actual hands-on bench work where you're working up real patient samples or something like that. So the bases that you can go to are Lackland, which you've been at for the most of your time. You can stay in San Antonio. You can go to Shepherd Air Force Base, which is in Wichita Falls, up in northern Texas. Eglin in Florida. Luke in near Phoenix, Arizona. You also have Travis in California. Nellis in Nevada. Langley, which is in Virginia. Andrews, which is I think near like DC. It's like they're kind of close to each other. Andrews and Langley, they're kind of close. But yeah, Andrews I believe is in near Washington DC. You also have Offutt in Nebraska. And there's a couple others, I believe. You also have, what's another one that I missed? Did I miss any? I don't miss any, did I? I'm trying to run through my head. New thing. Scott Air Force Base has been turned off as a phase 2 site. They are no longer accepting phase 2 students. I don't know what happened. I'm not allowed to know what happened. But, however, they are talking about turning off Luke Air Force Base as a phase 2 site, so you may not be able to go to Arizona at the time of you watching this video. However, they are discussing the possibility of opening up Alaska as a possible phase 2 location. So, if you're interested, and if you're watching this in the future, Alaska may be on that list of phase 2 sites. You'll just have to check with your recruiter to see if that's the case. Now, after phase 2, the way you get there. So if you want to pick, if you really want to pick where you go, for your phase 2 site, what you have to do is you got to study like a monster and get really good scores on all the tests that you take in phase 1. The top student will be allowed to pick their phase 2 site. Everyone else gets a random choice, or if you have some type of hardship, the technical trainers will make an exception for you if you have some reason to be a certain location, like family issues or legal issues, things like that. It has to be, you have to make a case if there's a reason why you need to go somewhere. But they'll try to give you your pick based on like, they'll give you like, for me, they gave me like 3 options. I put 3 on the list. I also had a family reason for why I wanted to go to a certain location, and then they let me go to that location. So I got it. Anyways, so you have those 11 locations, and then it's your job to study as hard as you can if you really want to go to a certain phase 2 location for 6 months. Now, here's the thing. We're talking about the first year of your Air Force career is going to be in school. So you need to strategize and plan out how you're going to make it for your first year in the Air Force. You're going to be spending almost basically 11 months in Texas. And think about that before you sign up for this career. Is that something that you can handle? The Air Force will take care of you. They'll take care of your pay. They'll take care of your family and all that. They'll give you TRICARE and all such things. But that has to be something you consider before you sign up for this career field, because your tech school is extremely long, okay? And not only that, but if you get stuck somewhere you don't want to be for the next 6 months in your phase 2, you can get screwed. So be very careful. My advice would be to be the best student in phase 1 so that you have the best chance of getting your phase 2 pick. After that, you will be required to take your MLT test from the ASCP, which is the American Society of Clinical Pathologists, okay? They will give you a test. It's a national board certification. If you fail that test, well, 3 things will happen. You will see your commander, and they will either 1, give you a waiver, which is unlikely unless there's some emergency circumstance. 2, they will reclass you, so they can reclass you to a different career field, which would be like 4A. I've seen people go from lab tech to nurse tech, and that's really bad. I mean, you've already been training in lab for like over a year, and then you end up getting reclassed. That's just a huge waste of their time. The more likely thing they're going to do is separate you. So take the test seriously, study hard, and make sure you pass that MLT board exam. It's not that, it is a little bit hard, but anyone can do it. I did it. Most of the people that were in my school had passed. Only I think like 2 or 3 people in my class didn't pass the MLT, and we had a shorter tech school than what you will have. So that's something that's going to be on you. Take it seriously, because you can be separated if you do not pass the MLT. Once you're at your MLT, once you pass it, you'll get assigned somewhere. Typically, the airman slots, they go to larger bases, but sometimes smaller bases. The largest Air Force bases are like Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. That's also another phase 2 site that you can go to. Wright-Patterson Air Force Base is in Ohio. But yeah, pretty much once you've done all the hard stuff, you got to take your CDCs, which is like takes another 12 months, but I got mine done in like 6. After that, you can start taking your own college classes and applying for tuition assistance. What else? Okay, so the lab itself is a pretty chill environment, especially if you're on 24-hour operations. You can kind of play music, you can chill, you can relax while you're just working up samples. Pretty cool. As long as you know your stuff and you're good at your job, and you learn how to get good at your job, because it does take practice, you'll be doing just fine. The building is air conditioned. It is required to be air conditioned 24/7 due to TJC regulations. So they're never gonna crank up the heat on you. It's not gonna be like sweltering hot or freezing cold in there ever. You're gonna be all right. Sometimes the nurses and the lab techs do not get along very much, just because of the nature of the job. Like, We are very OCD, so typically you'll have a sample, and if it's not presented to you in a very specific way, it must be immediately rejected because it can affect the test results. So you'll have nurses bringing samples that are unacceptable, and it's going to be on you to tell that nurse, hey, I know you've had a bachelor's degree and you've been to school and you think you know what you're doing, but you collected this sample incorrectly and you're going to need to recollect it. But the patient already left. You'll hear a bunch of, they'll get mad at you for rejecting their samples, pretty much is what I'm trying to say. And so that's why the lab and nurses sometimes have a little bit of beef with each other. But typically, as far as professional relationships go, they should get along, and they should at least be able to work together peacefully. Other than that, you have to be someone who is very detail-oriented. I think most jobs in the Air Force are like that. If you're not a detail-oriented person, I think the only real job you can do is like mental health, because they're kind of like, right? They're not really detail-oriented people. But yeah, I would say that would be most everything you need to know about the 4TO career field, breaking down the pipeline and down to what you'll experience as a lab tech. Now, I do recommend, if you're interested in lab, before you get in, like if you were a lab tech prior, or if you already have your MLT, you don't need to join the Air Force to get your to get a job as an MLT. There's plenty of jobs out there, but also you don't need your MLT to join the Air Force as a lab tech. You can come in with 0 college, and they will take you. A lot of people that are in this career field will go open general, which is when you go to your career recruiter and say, I want any job that you have in the general category, just give it to me. And a lot of lab techs come from those types of people who just came in the Air Force with whatever job they could get. But anyways, that's all I have for you. Good luck to anyone going through the recruiting process. Have fun at BMT, and I will be making another video talking about the commissioned officer process, which is what I'm going through right now.